Y'all, Wizard101 is about to upgrade a massive number of spells. Along with the insane shadow spell rework that they're doing, Wiz is also upgrading every single lore spell in Wizard101 in the upcoming Darkmoor update. And lore spells, right? Everybody uses them pretty much. These are the spells for your school to use as school pip. We're talking about spells like Brimstone, White Heartfire. These spells tend to be better than normal spells because that school pip is harder to get than a normal power pip. So a couple of days ago, Wiz released basically what they're doing to every life, death, and myth lore spell. Today we're going to be talking about the rest. Every confirmed upcoming change to every fire, ice, storm, and balance spell. I'm starting with fire because I think it's absolutely ridiculous. What you're looking at right now is the upcoming Apocalypse change. Now, this is a direct upgrade in several ways to the current version of Apocalypse in Live Realm. So just like every single lore spell we're going to be talking about, this now has the same accuracy as every other fire spell. They used to have 5 less. Now, instead of 70 accuracy, Apocalypse is 75. It's also, instead of 4 pips, it's 5 pips, right? It's 3 pips and a fire school pip, but unlike the Live Realm version, it detonates overtimes and adds a bonus to them. The Live Realm version does less damage, even if it is at 4 pips, but it detonates overtimes and gives you all the damage remaining on those overtimes without adding any bonus. Since you're already getting the damage on the damage overtime as long as it doesn't get removed, this is only good if you think your opponent's gonna counter that overtime right away. The fact that we have a version of Apocalypse that adds 145% to up to 2 dots, absolutely crazy. Now keep in mind, the dot counters are better. We're already in a very dot heavy meta, so this could be a problem in my opinion. Thankfully, I think the 5 pip cost instead of the 4 makes it a little less easy to spam, especially out of a double dot, even on other schools that aren't fire. But definitely a big upgrade. But as if that wasn't enough, what you're looking at is a new upcoming change to Brim. We already saw them go crazy with Keeper of the Flame and how good the traps are. It looks like they're doing that with Brim. Now Brim, it's still a 4 pip hit. That's really important, but it has 2 new paths that you can choose from, where you can either do a hit for 4 pips that gives you a 65 trap, or a hit at 4 pips that gives you multiple 50 traps. I'm gonna be honest, I think the fact that fire is a school that can hit through shields already makes any single trap very good, because you just can't shield over it. You kind of have to get weakness over it. But considering that Dark Pact, which is the main way most fires remove weaknesses, is not going to be a self-damage hit, meaning it won't remove weaknesses anymore, maybe a single trap isn't as powerful as it used to be because you don't have as good of an answer against weaknesses. Maybe the double trap is better. Regardless, in PvE or PvP, these are some of the best new buffs. If you potent this, which you can, it literally competes with Feint, except it's a fire trap. It's not universal. The next fire teaser isn't too crazy compared to what it is right now. This is Burning Rampage. Now, the top path seems to be pretty much exactly what Burning does right now. It does a small initial hit, and then it does 2 dots that detonate after 5 rounds. This is one of the only, if not the only, bomb dot that fire has. It doesn't do damage over time every round. It does all the damage on the overtime all at once in 5 rounds. Now there's a new bottom path for this, where instead of doing a small amount of initial damage, you can do a little bit more. And the trade-off is that instead of 2 dots that detonate in 5 rounds, you get 1 dot that detonates in 4 rounds. I'm gonna keep it so real. You have so many damage overtimes on a fire, including the new Fires of Mars, which is like a ridiculous 6-round damage overtime that does hit every round. I'm not sure bomb dots are ever really that good. The one thing I'll say is detonates. They only detonate the damage remaining on a dot. So if you do a detonate on a 6-round damage overtime 5 rounds in, you're not really going to get that much value out of the detonate. On the other hand, bomb dots, none of the damage happens until the very end, right? So detonates tend to be better, but it's higher risk, higher reward, because if someone removes a bomb dot, all that damage is gone. Moving right along to what I think might be the craziest upgrade that I have ever seen for fire, period. This is a new Krampus. Now, I think Krampus is a crazy spell to be upgrading like this because it's seasonal, but if you're a fire, make sure during the holidays you farm this, because now, in my opinion, it's a must-have spell. But what is this doing, right? It first, right, before it does anything, for a simple 4 pips, one of the pips being a fire pip, it detonates a damage overtime on the opponent, and the remaining damage on that overtime gets multiplied by 180%. I'm gonna be honest, a single detonate, thankfully doing 180 isn't that crazy. I actually think Apocalypse has a real chance of being better than this, but the big difference is Krampus is 4 pips, meaning you could do it a round earlier. And also, after the detonate, the spell still does 2 damage overtimes on the opponent, meaning you could cover a powerful dot and detonate a part of it with this spell. Right now, just like Apocalypse, the live round version, yes, it can detonate a dot, and yes, it does do 2 dots over it, but it doesn't do any sort of like multiplier to it. So these dot detonates are all getting multipliers added onto them. It makes dots way easier to do even more damage with them after the fact. This is the new Nautilus teaser. This is also a very crazy upgrade for fire. Now, this spell is actually kind of crazy. What this bottom path is, this is the only new part. It pushes 4 traps from yourself to your opponent, meaning if someone's trap stacking you, you have a way to get those traps off of you and put them on your opponent. Then after that, it does 2 dots, 700 damage total for 4 rounds, and it's also based on the school of the caster. I think this might be the new best trap counter in game, period, as long as you are fire or you fire dual school. This is the live round version right now for you know, reference. It pushes 1 trap. So you went from 1 trap to 4 traps for free there, and you got more accuracy on it. It's literally a crazy upgrade. I don't know how they've justified this. Like, does that just mean the Nautilus that we've had all this time has just been weak? I don't know. And honestly, I'm very, very scared because fires are obviously going to use this. Death and ice duel into fire, and they're generally weak against traps, and now they're just not gonna be. The spell is a little crazy. I don't know how I feel about this. I think I would have preferred 3 traps, but I guess it's very costly pip-wise. So I don't know. Maybe it's a good thing. Maybe it'll make PvE strats, like where you blade and trap stack, a little less effective. And finally, the last fire teaser that we got, still not small, is a heal lore spell, Whiteheart Fire. So there's 2 new paths for this that are both better than what we have right now. There's a top path that does a pretty big hit and it's a relatively weak single heal, and the bottom path, it's not 5 pips like the top path. This is 7 pips. Kind of crazy. I think this might be the new most high pip cost lore spell to my knowledge. I don't think we've ever seen them go above 6 pips until now. Correct me if I'm wrong, but for 7 pips you can do 500 damage and you get 2 heals. Now keep in mind, there are 5 pip spells that can counter up to 2 heals, like Skeletal Pirate. You could literally end up using a 7 pip spell and get countered for less, so that is a very, very big risk. So definitely a weird spell. I think fire is a dot trap and heal school. For them to get at least some sort of new heal, it is cool. I'm not sure how practical it is. Moving on to ice, the first teaser we're going to be talking about is Deer Mouse Trap. Now, this is currently a pretty weak hit and trap for ice, and both paths on this teaser are new compared to live round. The top path does slightly less damage than live round, but the trap is much more powerful. It's a 55 trap. We basically got a single trap that went from being a 40 to a 55 with the top path, barely giving up any damage, and it's a it's the same pip cost. The bottom path, though, is even cooler because also keep in mind, these are universal traps, meaning if you duel into ice, you want to break through debuffs, even as a, you know, not an ice, you can break weaknesses, shields do this, and you get traps that you could use, right? Really, really cool reason anyways to ice dual school. But yeah, basically you give up even more damage, and instead of getting 155 trap, the bottom path gives you 245 traps. What's very important to note, both the top path and the bottom path, whether they give 1 or 2 traps, still more powerful than the current version of Deer Mouse Trap. The next spell, much wonkier, much less usable. We have new versions of Handsome Fomori. Now the top path is still a hit and mantle. It's like an accuracy debuff. It's also still no PvP because I don't know why you would give that to ice. But the 2 new paths that we have available are weird. Now, there's school-specific weaknesses to Death and Storm, and basically you can either get more powerful weaknesses for less damage or less powerful weaknesses for more damage. It is very weird that this is probably the only lore spell in the entire game that does something based on the school you counter, this specifically. I'll say this, I think Death is very bad against weaknesses. Storm does not want to fight against weaknesses either. It is effective against the schools it's meant to be effective against. I'm wondering if any school other than ice would ever use this, right? Like even an ice outside of PvP, I don't think they're going to be using this. It's kind of a weird one, but it's a new way to set to Death and Storm, which could become relevant. Moving on to Ice Elemental. In my opinion, this is a real one that I will be spamming in PvP. Right now, Ice Elemental is what the top path says, but it's actually weaker than the top path in the teaser. So basically, the changes that they made is that they made a 30 weakness into a 35 weakness with the top path, and the damage is barely changed. The bottom path, slightly less damage, but 230 weaknesses. I'm gonna be honest, depending on which school you're going against, if they're good against weaknesses or not, you might want a single weakness or a double weakness. At the end of the day, though, this is generally used as a shield break. I'm thinking bottom path is just better because you're going to break a debuff and get 2 weaknesses instead of 1. But not all of them can be bangers, y'all. This is a teaser for Celestial Intervention. I don't even know what they really did to this. The top path is still no PvP. It still basically sacrifices shields for healing. Now, you used to only sacrifice a shield for 270 healing. Now it's a much better heal. However, the bottom path is still the exact same absorb that nobody uses. So I guess this is the one lore spell that we've seen so far where the top path is better. If y'all do want to heal on an ice, this is kind of cool. However, it is kind of weird, right? Like, you need the shield on yourself, and I don't know if you could target other people. I don't know. Maybe there's like a cool support. Y'all let me know in the comments if you're an ice main and you would use this in support. I guess if you like Spirit Shield or Ellie Shield, yeah, you have access to like 1500 healing. It can't be that bad. I just feel like healing isn't something you generally need in the game. If they ever give us offensive bosses or mobs where healing could be a thing, sure, I could get behind this. The next teaser is Ranger Knight. Now, this isn't really a massive one. They just made it slightly more powerful and also just a better shield. It's already a hidden shield in Live Realm, but it just does a little bit of a better shield. It's a -70 universal shield. It actually reminds me of old Abominable Weaver, so I guess they're just bringing that back with Ranger Knight. Right now in Live Realm, this is a 50 shield, so it's a big upgrade to a 70 shield. Snow Pigs. Now, this is the big one that I think Ice is going to be using outside of Ice Elemental, especially in PvP. This is a triple weakness push, and then it hits, all for a simple 4 pips, one of the pips being an Ice pip. So how does this work? Let's say that you have a bunch of weaknesses on. This will literally take those weaknesses, put them on your opponent, and then hit. Let's say someone uses like a very powerful double weakness on you. You can basically ignore those weaknesses and hit. It should be very, very good against Death, Ice, and even Balance, because Balance also uses a lot of weaknesses. I'm thinking this is more of a PvP spell because the damage is a little low. I think there is already a hit through a weakness for PvE, Woolly Mammoth, right? And because it's so high pips, you'll do damage with it, right? So I think this is more of like, in PvP, a very good utility, but this is one of those I could see any school using, especially because the accuracy requirement for this is only 20% now. And finally, for Ice, we have the big nerf. We have Winter Moon now doing no flat damage allowed in PvP. It's still allowed to do flat damage in PvE if you want this as a damage source, but the bottom path is the only usable one in PvP. This is a big deal. A lot of people use Winter Moon as their main source of damage, but now it is a hit that gives you a double shield. Pretty weak hit, but what's very important is that this double shield is specific to the school of the opponent. In Live Realm, this is the most, similar spell, Volcanic Golem. This hits for 300 damage and gives you 245 shields based on the school of your opponent. Winter Moon basically does almost the exact same damage for an extra Ice Pip added onto this, and the shields are way more potent. I will say this, spells like Fire Elf, for simply having 2 pips, can clear 2 shields and do bonus damage. I have a feeling this teaser, it'll get out-traded by Fire Elf, which makes it much less usable than even Volcanic Golem, because why would you put all those pips for one Fire Elf to break all of it? I think this is a massive nerf. Rest in peace, Ice's damage apple. We will see if the buffs that they did get make up for this ridiculous nerf. Moving on to Storm. Now, they didn't get that many changes, but the ones that they did get are massive. This is a Berry surprise teaser. Now, Berry is very, very weird. The top path, they didn't really change it, but the bottom path, it's just not what it does in Live Realm right now. You can either keep it at 4 pips and do a pretty big hit for only a small 420 single heal, or if you want more healing, you have to go up to 5 pips in order to do, yes, a lot more damage and a lot more healing. But considering the Berry is currently used mainly as a way to shield break while healing, the 5 pip bottom path is much harder to use than the current version, which still gives you a double heal for 4 pips and a relatively weak hit. It's not technically a full nerf. You're just much better off using Berry not into set shields now. You kind of got to use it against weaknesses, so it's a little bit less usable than it is right now. Maybe a slight nerf, but I do like the versatility of the damage on it. It's actually a much higher damage spell compared to the Live Realm version of Berry. So you have a lot more damage compared to healing, unless you want to go up in pip cost, which is kind of inconvenient. Now, Calypso is very, very cool. It's already a hit and infection in Live Realm, but the middle and bottom path kind of do what we've seen them do with traps, where you can either do more infections with less damage or more damage with less infections. The middle path is a double 65% infection. The bottom path is a triple 60% infection. Now, both of these infections are better than the 50-something% infections that Calypso does in Live Realm right now, but the damage loss is just a little bit to make up for it, I guess. I think functionally the spell isn't any different. You're going to carry this if you want to infect instead of heal clear, which is something that Storm can do. That being said, I don't think there's a massive difference between 2 or 3 infections, so I'm leaning towards just taking the higher damage option. Now, Catalan. This is a teaser for Catalan. It's very, very weird. The top path became a hit and 35 weakness. However, it's no PvP. To use the spell in PvP, you basically have to give up damage for either 1 more powerful weakness or 2 less powerful weaknesses. Live Realm Catalan is a 700 damage hit, so no matter what you do, if you use this in PvP, you're doing less damage. I will say this, 230 weaknesses or 140 weakness, that is still way more defensive, like, you know, capability than Storm has ever had. So actually a pretty good upgrade in terms of mitigation for Storm, even though it looks like a damage debuff on paper. Now, in my opinion, this is the one real buff that Storm has gotten. The one, like, no matter how you slice it, this is a buff, and I don't even know why they buffed this spell. It's already OP, but this is a catch of the day teaser. But just like everything we've seen, you can either basically use a 65 blade out of a hit, but it's one blade, or you could do a relatively weaker hit and get 245 blades. Now keep in mind, these are school specific, meaning if a fire uses this, they'll get 165 fire blade. If they use a bottom path, they'll get 245 fire blade. Now the bottom path is literally what catch of the day does right now, but with less damage. But the top path is crazy. If you use this in Strike, basically you're threatening an owl that can kill. If you, let's say you're at full pips, you strike and you use this, you're threatening a kill shot no matter who you're going against, because your strike deals with the resist. The 65 blade is basically giving you a feint. This is also really good on any school if you can get that 30% accuracy, if you want to break debuffs and get a really crazy on school buff. Some might argue it's a nerf. I don't think it's a nerf. I think this is just crazy. I think it's already so formula heavy that you can just catch the day into an owl, and now you just have a better catch sometimes. And finally, the big teaser that Storm got, Revolutionary Strike. Now this is still a 3-pip lore spell, very, very cheap on top path just for extending heals. This spell's crazy on the bottom path though. It's 5 pips, it steals 2 heals, extends both of the heals by a round, and then does up to 600 damage. I don't know what they're thinking with this. I think if you heal against a Storm and they have the pips to do this, you're just throwing. That's just like hella punishing. But not only can a Storm use this, don't forget, now that the accuracy requirement is lower, more schools can use this for the first time. I was very worried about all the crazy heals that Life was getting with their lore spell upgrades, but this is one of the greatest punishes I've seen. You're getting rid of a life seal, you're extending the heal for yourself, and you're doing a good bit of damage. Literally the new best heal counter in game, without a doubt. We've never seen a steal heal mechanic at all, so this is a brand new item in Storm's library, and also a brand new item in anyone dueling into Storm's library. Easily my favorite spell in all of these teasers. And finally, balance. The good news is these are pretty easy to understand because none of them really changed all that much other than a couple. But this is a teaser for Brave Sir Badger. Now it's a hit that does a slightly more powerful aura. Nothing too crazy compared to what it does right now. It's just a 35 universal aura instead of a 25. Lore Master, the bottom path and the middle path are both still hitting weaknesses. It's still doing the same thing that a lot of these spells are doing, where you could either do less damage with weaknesses or more damage with one weakness. This one is a little bit less clear cut of, like, you know, like a direct upgrade, because I do think the weaknesses are a little bit more potent. So I guess you have a little bit more defense on a balance. And Samurai, still a hit and shield, but the shields, instead of being 30%, now we're looking at 70% shield. This is so much defense for balance to be getting. Like, right, you got better weaknesses, better shields, they're universal. You really have no reason to worry about anything on a balance if you have every lore spell. Obviously, some schools are better against weaknesses, some schools are better against shields, but I can see a lot of people carrying lore and samurai and just having a really good answer in a bunch of scenarios. Savage Paw is also still a hit and blade, but instead of a 25 blade, you can either get 145 blade or 2 weaker 35 blades. So I would say all of these just direct upgrades compared to what it does right now. Very, very little to understand with these cards to like extra. So if you're a balance, you kind of lucked out. Now the ones that are different though, Divim's Resurgence, instead of being a hit and double infection, it's now a hit that does both a regular damage trap and an infection trap. Now keep in mind, infection traps are not the same as regular infections. If someone does an overtime heal, it's only going to apply on 1 tick of that heal over time. So it's not super, super good. I would argue really the spell is still very, very hard to use, but I guess compared to being a double infection trap, having 2 useless traps, I guess one of these traps is better. I'm still seeing very, very few people use this in my opinion. And finally, Spiritual Tribunal. Now there is, I've been told this, there is like an error on this card right now on the teaser. It doesn't do 345 damage of each spirit school. It does one of the 3. So the bottom path and the top path are basically either you do a little bit more damage and you get a heal added on, or you do a little bit less damage but the heal gets a little bit better. This is a little bit of a weird spell because middle path Tribunal is 4 pips and it does a weak hit and a weak heal, and bottom path Tribunal is still stronger hit wise and a stronger heal. They're putting a lot of value on that 1 extra pip, which is a little crazy, but If y'all wanted extra healing identity on a balance, congratulations, you got it. Y'all, that is every single teaser for Fire, Storm, Ice, and Bounce. Let me know what y'all think of what your favorite spell is. Hopefully, I explained all of them. The real TLDR is a lot of these spells are becoming higher risk, higher reward, and considering that shadow spells are going to add backlash, there's a whole type of high risk, high reward there as well. I don't know what this is going to do to the game, but all of these spells are massively more usable in PvE. PvP is about to be hectic, so stay tuned for that content. Let me know what y'all thoughts in the comments. Drop a like if you enjoyed, leave a sub if you're new. And as always, if somebody hasn't told you you're awesome today, they doing something wrong. Stay awesome, y'all. See y'all soon. And yeah.